Hello everyone, and welcome to a journey that might not only change the way you see yourself but could also change your entire life. Imagine living in a strange house. The mirrors reflect someone you don't recognize, the clocks run backward, and every cherished memory you once held dear is twisted, erased as if it never existed. Sounds like a nightmare, right? But this isn't a horror movie plot. This is the real-life experience of millions of people trapped in the shadow of a narcissist. Ask yourself a simple question. Have you ever felt like you were losing your mind because of someone else? Like every word you say, every feeling you have, every decision you make is distorted, denied, and turned into a weapon used against you. Maybe you've stood in front of a mirror and thought, am I imagining things? Am I the problem? If your answer is yes, or even if there's just a small, quiet nod in your heart, then you're not alone. And this video was made just for you. We live in a world where freedom is sacred, the freedom to think, to feel, to be yourself without asking for permission. It's a promise many of us hold dear, a promise deeply woven into how we see ourselves and our lives. But what happens when someone silently walks into your life and takes all of that away? Not with fists or shouts, but with subtle words, suspicious glances, and psychological traps carefully designed to make you question your very existence. Psychological studies from numerous reputable organizations show that millions of people every year report being emotionally manipulated in relationships, a number so vast it could fill an entire bustling city. But that number is just the tip of the iceberg, because the wounds inflicted by a narcissist don't bleed. They don't leave marks on the skin, they're deep scars within the soul, invisible cuts you can't point to and say, here, this is the proof. And the most frightening part, many of us don't even realize we're being hurt until it's too late. I'm here to walk with you through a long journey, not just to recognize the invisible chains that may be binding you, but to find ways to break them, one by one, so you can rise up and reclaim your power. This isn't a story about blame or living in pain. It's a story about discovering the truth, facing it head-on, and ultimately taking back control of your life. If you've ever doubted yourself because of someone else, don't go anywhere, because what you're about to hear might just be the key to unlocking a door you thought was sealed shut forever. Gaslighting, it sounds like an old-fashioned word from a bygone era, but don't let its vintage name fool you. It's a modern weapon, sharp, silent, and it never leaves a trace of blood. This isn't your typical argument like, what did you say? Or did you forget again? No, gaslighting is a calculated war, a deliberate strategy designed to attack your sense of reality. It's a psychological tactic meant to make you feel like you're losing your mind in the very story of your own life. So think of it like a silent thief. It doesn't need to break down the door or pick the lock. It sneaks into your mind, softly but mercilessly, stealing the pieces of truth you once held on to and replacing them with a pile of doubt that makes you ask yourself, am I imagining things? Is something wrong with me? Why can't I remember anything anymore? That's the power of gaslighting. It doesn't strike with brute force, but with subtlety, with patience, slowly eroding your trust in yourself. Let me introduce you to Jen, a 20-year-old woman living in a big city. Jen is the kind of person you'd say has it all: a steady job in advertising, a cozy little apartment, and a smile that made everyone want to be her friend. Then she met Tom, a charming, confident man her friends called a gift from heaven. At first everything was perfect, romantic dates, sweet texts. But soon cracks began to appear. Tom missed a dinner date when Jen brought it up. He laughed and said, "You must be remembering it wrong. I never said that." Another time at a party, he called her stupid in front of everyone. When she reacted, he shrugged it off. "You're too sensitive. I was just joking." Little by little, Jen began to doubt herself. She started taking notes on her phone, snapping photos of their conversations, even bought a journal to write down everything Tom said, because she no longer trusted her own memory. One time she played back a recording to prove her point. Tom just laughed and said, "You misunderstood me. You always blow things out of proportion." Jen told me she felt like she was trapped in a nightmare. She couldn't wake up from a place where everything she once knew about herself was twisted into something wrong. That's what gaslighting does to you. It doesn't just confuse you, it robs you of one of the greatest freedoms we hold dear, the freedom to trust ourselves. We grow up believing our intuition is our compass. Our mind is our strongest weapon to navigate the world. But when a narcissist enters the picture, they shatter that compass, blur your mind, and turn you into a prisoner of doubt, a prisoner who doesn't even realize they're imprisoned. So what exactly is gaslighting? It's deliberate manipulation, carried out with a clear goal, to make you question your own reality, from the big things like, did he really promise to always be there for me, to the small things like, did I lock the door, or did I just forget again? And the scariest part, it doesn't happen all at once. It starts like a tiny grain of sand in your shoe, just enough to bother you. But over time, that grain becomes a desert, weighing down your shoulders, making it feel like you can't breathe. Think about it, we live in a society that celebrates independence, the ability to stand on our own 2 feet, to trust our judgment, to live life on our own terms. But gaslighting is a direct attack on that spirit. It doesn't just make you question yourself, it makes you rely on the manipulator to define reality for you. And once you lose the ability to define yourself, you lose everything. A narcissist doesn't need fists, guns, or physical strength to control you. Instead, they use 5 razor-sharp psychological blades, each one carefully crafted to slowly but surely cut you off from yourself. We're going to walk through each of these blades, each incision, so that you not only recognize them, but also learn how to fight back against them. Get ready, because this is the most important part of the journey. Weapon 1. Recruiting the crowd. They turn your friends and family into an audience in a play where you're cast as the villain and they're the brilliant director. This is the first blade, and it strikes at one of the most fundamental human values, community. A narcissist doesn't come at you directly, not at first. They're smarter than that. First, they build a cheering section for themselves. They reach out to the people you love most, your mother, your brother, your best friend from high school, and play the role of the perfect person. They smile, they listen, they tell heartfelt stories that make everyone think, wow, this person is amazing, so kind, so trustworthy. But behind that mask, they begin planting tiny seeds of doubt about you. Picture this, they pull your mom aside during a family dinner and speak in a concerned tone. "Have you noticed Jen seems a little off lately? I'm really worried about her. She's been so forgetful." Nothing specific, nothing overt, just a gentle suggestion, enough to make your mom start looking at you differently. And later, when their behavior toward you gets worse, when they start yelling at you, denying their promises, or making you cry, they go back to the crowd and water those seeds. Jen overreacts to everything. They tell your brother. "She's unstable. I just don't know what to do anymore," they whisper to your best friend. And then what happens? When you run to your loved ones for help, "Mom, he's making me feel like I'm going crazy." Your mom doesn't wrap you in her arms like she used to. Instead, she looks at you and says, "Are you okay? He told me he's really worried about you." Suddenly, you're no longer the one in need of comfort. You're the one being questioned, doubted, viewed as the problem. We often believe that community is our strength, that family and friends are the ones who lift us up when we fall, the safety net when life gets chaotic. But a narcissist knows that too, and they weaponize it. They isolate you from the people you need most, turning them into allies of the manipulator without them even realizing it. And if someone does start to see through their game, someone smart, someone who doesn't buy the act, they'll try to cut that person out of your life immediately. "They're just jealous of us," they'll say. "They're trying to come between us." And you believe them, because by then, you're already deeply caught in their performance. Think about Jen. When she finally confided in her best friend about Tom, she discovered that Tom had already called ahead, saying Jen was going through something and needed help. Jen's best friend didn't stand by her, she stood by Tom. Jen lost the one friend who might have saved her, simply because Tom had already recruited the crowd first. Weapon 2. Erasing your memory. They're master editors, cutting and splicing your memories into a film you no longer recognize. This is the second blade, and it strikes directly at your personal history, the very thing that shapes who you are. They deny what you remember, and they do it so frequently and so naturally that you begin to doubt your own mind. You say, "You promised you'd come to my birthday last week." They respond, "Are you imagining things? I never said that you really should get your memory checked." They hide your car keys, let you panic and search for hours, then place them back and laugh. They were there the whole time, what's wrong with you? They leave a mug on the kitchen counter, and when you ask, "Whose mug is this?" they shrug, "What mug? Are you hallucinating again?" Jen told me a story that sent chills down my spine. One night, she noticed Tom had left his phone at home, and she saw a message he sent to another woman. When she confronted him, he looked her straight in the eye and said, "What are you talking about? I never left my phone at home. You're sure you're not dreaming?" Jen checked again. The phone was gone from where she had seen it, and Tom just laughed like she told a silly joke. She started thinking, maybe I really did imagine it. They do this over and over, bit by bit, until you feel like you have to record every conversation, take pictures of everything, write detailed journals just to prove to yourself that you're not losing your mind. But here's the trap: even when you have evidence, they'll twist it. Jen once played a recording for Tom. He clearly insulted her in it, but he just shrugged and said, "You misunderstood me. That's not what I meant. You always twist things." They always have an exit route, always a way to make you feel like your memory is your enemy. Memory is your foundation. It's the story of what you've lived through, what you've learned, what makes you who you are today. When a narcissist erases it, they don't just take away your past, they strip away your identity. We often take pride in knowing who we are, in standing firmly on our own story. But when your memories are distorted, you become a stranger in your own life. Weapon 3. Stealing your perception. They're cruel painters, brushing over the canvas of your reality with distorted colors of their own. This is the third blade, and it targets your intuition, the sacred compass we all rely on to guide us through life. You feel sad, and they say, "You're too sensitive, just chill out." You're angry because they insulted you, and they say, "You misunderstood, I didn't mean it like that." Why do you always overreact? You make a decision, even something as simple as choosing dinner, and they plant doubt. "Are you sure? That sounds like a terrible choice, let me pick instead." They dismiss your feelings, your judgment, your beliefs, everything that makes you you, until you no longer know what you're feeling, thinking, or believing anymore. Jen once told me about a time she cried after Tom screamed at her. She said, "I'm sad because you hurt me." Tom looked at her and scoffed. "Sad about what? You're making yourself sad. I didn't do anything." She began to question herself. Was I wrong? Am I just too weak? Over time, she stopped trusting her own emotions. If Tom said she shouldn't feel sad, maybe she really wasn't sad. If Tom said she misunderstood, maybe she really did. We take pride in experiencing the world in our own way, making decisions based on our intuition, living according to what our heart and mind tell us. That's the spirit of freedom. You are the captain of your own ship. But a narcissist doesn't want you at the helm. They want you to hand over the wheel to them. They sow doubt in every corner of your mind, making you feel like you're not capable of steering your own course. And once you lose the ability to trust your own perception, you become a puppet in their hands, easily controlled, easily manipulated. They do this so subtly you don't even realize it. It starts with little comments, "Are you sure? You remembered wrong." But over time, those comments become a repeated chorus, making you feel like you can't trust anything anymore, except for them. And that's exactly their goal, to make you dependent, so they become the only person who defines reality for you. Weapon 4. Dodging responsibility by shifting blame. They're master attorneys in the courtroom of your mind, always armed with a defense to escape accountability. This is the fourth blade, and it protects their fragile ego by cutting straight into your self-worth. They never take responsibility, never. You say, "You hurt me when you called me useless." They respond, "I don't remember saying that, and if I did, it's only because you made me angry first." They deny everything, as if their words and actions never happened. And if denial doesn't work, they deflect. "What about you? You forgot to call me back last week, why aren't we talking about that?" And if that doesn't work either, they minimize. "I was just joking, why are you making such a big deal out of it? That's ridiculous, you really don't have a sense of humor, do you?" Jen once confronted Tom after he stood her up for the third time in a row. She said, "You really let me down, you promised you'd be there." Tom didn't apologize, instead he laughed. "I don't remember making any promise. Besides, you're always busy, why should I prioritize you?" When Jen pressed the issue, he turned it around. "Well, you missed dinner with my friends last week, maybe you should look at yourself." And finally he ended with, "Come on, it's not a big deal, you're seriously overreacting." Jen walked away not with an apology, but with a sinking feeling that somehow she was the one at fault. We're taught that truth is the foundation of fairness, that when you mess up you own it, you fix it, and you move forward. That's how we build relationships, families, and society. But narcissists don't play by those rules. They distort the truth to protect their ego, an ego built on deception and control. They don't say, "I'm sorry, I was wrong." Instead, they make you the problem, leaving you feeling like you don't deserve better treatment. And it's not just a one-time thing, it's a pattern. They deny to avoid judgment, deflect to shift attention, and minimize to make you feel small. The result? You start apologizing for simply standing up for yourself. You start questioning whether you even have the right to be upset, and they stand there untouched while you carry all the pain. Weapon 5. Offloading shame, the sharpest blade. They turn you into an emotional dumping ground, unloading all of their self-disgust onto you, forcing you to carry the burdens they refuse to face themselves. This is the 5th blade, and in my opinion, it's the deepest, most brutal cut, because it strikes at your core sense of self-worth. A narcissist doesn't feel guilt, they don't care about hurting you, and they feel no remorse when they see you cry. But they are tormented by something else, shame. Not shame for what they do, but shame for what they believe about themselves, that they're not good enough, not worthy. To survive under the weight of the false self they've created, they need 2 things: constant admiration from others, and a place to unload their shame. And unfortunately, that place becomes you. They dig into your secrets, your deepest insecurities, your past mistakes, the moments when you felt like a failure. Jen once confided in Tom that she feared not being good enough at her job, a fear she had never shared with anyone before. Tom listened, nodded, and acted understanding. But months later, during an argument, he weaponized it against her. "You think you're good at what you do. Please, no one at work respects you. I'm the only one who puts up with you." Jen said it felt like being stabbed, not just by the words, but because she started to believe them. And it didn't stop there. They amplify your existing shame and then plant new seeds. They suggest you should be ashamed of things you never even questioned before: your appearance, your voice, your lifestyle. They push you to do things that go against your values just to prove your love or loyalty, and then use those very things to crush you. "Look at you," they say, "you're pathetic. How could anyone love someone like you?" Shame is the most poisonous drug in human psychology. It makes you feel small, worthless, like you don't deserve anything good. And narcissists know that. They inject it into you, drop by drop, until you start to loathe yourself. Jen told me there were days she couldn't even look in the mirror. She felt like an empty shell, a failure no one would ever want. When you're drowning in shame, you don't feel like you can leave because you've come to believe that this is all you deserve, that no one else would ever accept you. This is the sharpest blade because it doesn't just cut into your mind, it cuts into your soul. It destroys your self-worth, shatters your confidence, and makes life feel like a nightmare you can't escape. But hear me when I say this. This is not the truth about you. This is the lie they want you to believe. Gaslighting is an invisible prison, its walls built from doubt, its bars forged from shame. But you are not a prisoner forever. You hold the key to break free, and you are stronger than they ever wanted you to believe. You are not a helpless victim, you are a warrior being tested. And this is how you reclaim your power, one step at a time. The first step is to name the monster that's holding you captive. If you recognize yourself in the 5 blades, if you see yourself isolated, questioning your memory, having your feelings dismissed, being blamed and burdened by shame, then you are experiencing psychological abuse. Don't fear that word, abuse. It's not an accusation, it's liberation. We're often taught to face the truth, no matter how painful it is. We don't run from it, we look it in the eye, we call it by name, and we fight back. Say it to yourself out loud. I am being gaslighted. Write it on a piece of paper, whisper it in the dark, or scream it if you need to, but acknowledge it. Truth is your first weapon in breaking the chains, because you cannot fight what you're afraid to name. Jen did this. One night, after Tom denied yet another cruel insult, she sat down with a pen and wrote, "I'm not crazy. He's manipulating me." Just that one sentence lit a fire inside her. She realized the problem wasn't her, the problem was Tom. And from that moment she began her journey toward freedom. The second step is reclaiming your compass, the one the narcissist shattered to keep you lost. Start by recording your truth. Buy a journal, download a note-taking app, or simply type into your phone anything that helps you hold on to what you remember, what you feel, what you know is real. When the narcissist says, "I didn't say that," you can look back and see your own words. March 10th, he called me a failure. That's your evidence. That's your anchor. Next, find someone you can trust, not someone who's been recruited into the narcissist show, but someone outside their script. Maybe it's an old friend you've lost touch with, a colleague who hasn't been pulled in, or a therapist if you have access. Tell them your story, not to be rescued, but so you have a lighthouse when you're lost in the fog. Jen reached out to a college friend, someone Tom had once told her to cut ties with. She called, cried, and poured it all out. That friend said, "Jen, you're not crazy, you're being abused." And for the first time in months, Jen felt like she wasn't alone. Most importantly, trust your intuition. That gut feeling that something's not right, the one you've tried to ignore, that's not delusion. That's the voice of truth, buried beneath the lies a narcissist has been feeding you. You're not crazy, you've just been deceived. Rebuild your reality piece by piece until you can stand tall and say, "This is my truth, and no one can take it from me." The final step is leaving, and I know this is the hardest part. You think, if I leave, what happens to me? Who will want me after everything I've become? You're afraid of being alone, afraid of failing, afraid they were right when they said you didn't deserve anything better. But hear me, leaving is not weakness, it's the greatest victory you can ever claim. It is your spirit breaking free, resilient, strong, and no longer allowing anyone to define you but you. Meet Mike, a guy from a small town. Mike lived with a wife who made him question everything from whether he locked the door at night to whether he was worthy of being a father. She called him useless, then denied it. She blamed him for everything, then laughed when he tried to make things right. One day, Mike stumbled across a video on gaslighting on YouTube, and he saw himself in it. He found a therapist who specialized in narcissistic abuse, and after 6 months of inner battles, he left. Today, Mike told me, "I've never felt more alive. I didn't just leave, I found myself again." You can do it too. Start small, make a plan, find a place to stay, tell a trusted friend that you need help. If you can't leave yet, begin building your inner strength. Learn about narcissism, remind yourself daily that you deserve freedom. But remember this, every step you take away from them is a step closer to yourself. Choose yourself not because you hate them, but because you love yourself enough to live a life that's truly yours. You are not a victim, you are a warrior being tested, and this battle is not meant to be lost. Don't let the narcissist write your story. Don't let them hold the pen and paint you as a faded shadow of who you truly are. Stand up, take back that pen, and rewrite your life in the vibrant colors you choose, the colors of freedom, strength, and truth. If you saw yourself in this video, if you recognize the blades that have cut into you, do something today. Leave a comment below and tell me your story. I read every single one, and I'm here for you. Share this video with a friend, a loved one, anyone who might be searching for a light in their own darkness. Hit subscribe so we can keep building strength together day by day, step by step. And if you're still struggling, if you feel like those invisible chains are still wrapped tightly around you, please reach out to a professional, a therapist, a counselor, anyone who understands narcissistic abuse and can help you break free from that prison. You are not alone on this path. Millions have walked it before you, and they're reaching out to lift you up. I want to end with the words of Maya Angelou, one of the greatest voices of our time. You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. Choose to fight today, not just because you want to survive, but because you deserve to live, to be loved, and to be yourself. You are strong enough to do that, and I believe in you.